And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, it's xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. To find out about the broadcast schedule we have for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And for the X Zone TV channel, on Simul TV, which is channel 21, simultv.com. And later on this month, we're going to be on, let me see, Craig, where's the list? Pop it up for me. Thanks, Craig. Comcast, iLaunch, and we're going to be right across the United States and into 50 other countries around the world. We're also going to be on Jungo TV and distributed by Globecast. Times are growing here in the X Zone, and I've got you to thank. And for doing the show for 30 years, I've had the opportunity of meeting some very interesting people, to put it mildly. But I've also had the opportunity of meeting people who really want to do things the right way, who want to make a difference, who want to share the information in a credible way. And such is my guest this hour, David Campione. I had the pleasure of having Dave on the show the first time 26 years ago. And a little bit about David. David's father, Michael J. Campione, started his UFO-Flying saucer research in 1948. David's life growing up exposed him to numerous UFO-flying saucer information and experiences with extraterrestrial spacecraft. Most of this was done from 1950 to the 1990s. David was a member of DelVal, that's the Delaware Valley UFO nonprofit organization, Philadelphia and southern New Jersey. His interest in extraterrestrial visitors continues to this present day. David has produced and narrated a UFO-flying saucer documentary on VHS. David produced Michael's spacecraft photographs and information he had accumulated from various people around the United States, including Mr. Paul Vila's photographs of a flying saucer during the daytime, up close and personal. All this information was made into a 59-minute documentary, the world's greatest UFO flying saucer video, and was presented at the UFO convention in Las Vegas, Nevada. David has published and is available... hold on here. This doesn't make sense to me. Let me try this again. David has published a book that is entitled UFO Spacecraft Identification, which is available on Amazon.com. Joining me now is David Campione, and after the show, X Zone Nation, if you'd like more information about David, visit his website at spacioussky.com. And David, welcome back to the X Zone. It's always a great pleasure having you on the show, my friend.
Thank you, Rob, for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. It's been a while, and I'm glad to be back.
David, you and I go back 26 years, and there are many times people will ask me when I go out doing speeches or lectures or doing other shows, they'll say, Rob, what changes have you seen in the world of ufology since you've been doing your show? And I have to answer them honestly. Nothing.
He's right.
Dave, what happened? Why was there this, in your opinion, this massive download of information, this massive number of sightings, whether it was, first kind, second kind, third kind, and today, with all this modern technology we have, there seems to be next to nothing going on. What happened, in your opinion?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what happened. It seemed like during the 70s and 80s we were seeing everything. The movies were being put out, and I think that's when what was it, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Contact, and they were out there, and they were produced. I thought they were produced very well for Hollywood to put the information out there, but it just seems like everything shifted towards politics, and even though there are websites, a lot of websites, I won't mention. I guess I can.
Sure.
Recently, I would say within the last 2.5 years, Yahoo has had more UFO articles than any other website that I visit, in the mainstream websites. And of course, all the people who are extraordinarily experienced with Photoshop and videos, you get to see things that you question, is this real? I don't know if you saw the one some years ago, how somebody had, Millennium Falcon from Star Wars.
Yes, yes, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, they were flying over these
Yeah.
palm trees, and they're going. I said, I can't believe this. People are really good out there with faking stuff, and I think that's basically what's happened over the years. The more we got into the social media and electronics, the computers, and what people can do, and you don't know what's real anymore. The most recent that I think it was last fall, where the United States Navy released these. I don't know. There was some space. I mean, fighter jet was out, and
Right.
they said, "Oh yeah, this is actual UFO." Well, everybody, it looked like a Tic Tac.
Yeah.
It was in black and white, and this guy's going along, and it did nothing. And I thought, wow, that's a downer there. I'm expecting something phenomenal to see, and but at least they brought something out. That's the only thing that I can say. But it was how many years? I think that was done in '04 or '06. So it was like 14 or 12 years later that they brought this thing out.
Well,
What? Yes.
I find it very, very coincidental that they brought this Tic Tac UFO footage from the the aircraft's gun camera,
Right.
when all this talk about the Russians having developed a hyperspace weapon that the United States could not defend itself against. Now, I looked at that and I figured, well, wait a minute. Maybe this is the United States letting Russia know that they, too, have a hypersonic weapon.
Yeah.
The Cold War, as you and I well know, remembering the Cuban Missile Crisis, the space race, and everything else that has been going on since I can remember, since the end of World War II. And I really don't think that President Trump and Vladimir Putin have come to the point where the Cold War really isn't still going on. I think it's gone up a few notches based on today's technology.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they ramped it up.
Yeah.
Now just to add a little addendum to that, back in let's see, my wife and I were introduced to the information. It was a couple out of Tehachapi, California, and they used to, let's see, it was EJ and his wife Doris, which they called Dharma. She would channel a Commander Hatan from one of these. He says his spaceship up there was, I don't know, it could be Venus. I mean, the size of this thing. I mean, he said, well, what do you think a starship looks like? But anyway, she would channel, and some of the information that she put out over the years, and what she received from Commander Hatan, if you can, it's a lot of discernment there.
Sure.
He said that the Russians back then already had satellites up there that were controlling our weather. And also they had the technology of firing. Now, they didn't say laser, he didn't say lasers, but they had the missiles. And we were just like, the United States was like a pawn to these people. So whether that's changed or not, I have no idea. I mean, I'm so far out of the loop with the U.S. military.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should believe half the stuff I hear from them, what they do. But this is back let's say in 1989 and through the 90s when this group was in existence. And but they were putting that out there, and they said the Russians were in charge. Now it's interesting that recently President Trump said we want to have a space troops or
Space Force. Space Force.
Space Force.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going on now? And I think didn't China just land on the other side of the moon? I think they put something up there, or they're about to. And then we're supposed to go back to the moon again. It's like everybody's jockeying the big powers for all this positioning of superiority from up above. Yeah.
David, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our first commercial break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about David or how you can get your very own copy of the world's greatest UFO flying saucers, as well as UFO spacecraft identification manual, visit www.spacioussky.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. You know what I can't understand, Exonation, is why people within the UFO community keep changing their story. For example, do you remember Travis Walton? Well, he's out there, and he and some other loggers see what they claim to be a UFO. Travis Walton goes close to it to see what it was, and apparently, when the story first came out, Travis Walton was abducted. He spent a couple of days in space, returned to Heber, Arizona, and the story goes on from there. It was made into a movie, a TV program. It's called Fire in the Sky. Yep. Now Travis Walton is saying, well, no, what happened was that the ray from the flying saucer hit me and killed me, and the aliens brought me aboard their spacecraft and revived me, brought me back to life. Okay. Then you've got Major Ed Dames, who was part of the remote viewing. What do we call remote viewing?
Remote viewing. That's it.
Remote viewing. Who apparently was who taught at the CIA, and now he's saying that he has remote viewed extraterrestrials, and he is going to meet them in a California desert, and to prove that he's really met them, he's going to bring everybody proof. And what the aliens told them that they are going to do is they are going to disable a Russian nuclear sub, and an American nuclear sub. That is, in my opinion, very stupid, but we'll have to see if this really happens. And then you've got Daryl Sims, the alien hunter, who is now saying that not only was he abducted, but his son has been abducted as well. And these stories just keep on developing. It's like people have to reinvent themselves. Yeah. And David, I've known you for 26 years. Yeah. You have stayed the same, and I applaud that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, truth is truth, Rob. That's the way I look at it. When you keep changing, you forget what your first story was. That's what they always say.
Yeah. Tell us about your sighting.
Yeah, okay. The first sighting I had, I was leaving. I was 12 years old in 1956. Just for everybody out there, if you can do the math, you can know I'm 74, so that saves you some time. We were leaving the Boy Scout meeting, 5 other friends, and there were total with me. It was 6 of us, and it was in Philadelphia. In the Holmesburg section of Philadelphia, and we were walking on Frankfurt Avenue, walking home when you were allowed to walk home at night, and we stopped. We crossed a bridge over to Pennypack Creek, going to Frankfurt Avenue Bridge, we all called it, and crossing over to Pennypack Creek, and we stopped, and we were kids, and we were kicking rocks and throwing rocks down into the water, and all of a sudden all 6 of us just looked up and looked down the river. Now, it was just so hard to figure how far away this was. The only thing we can think of was it was down over the Delaware River, and then it was some miles away from where we were, and it looked like the full moon was traversing, on its side, just like you would see the moon, and just going right down in front of us, and it opened. It came from the north and was going south. And then when it hit the opening, we caught the glimpse of it coming through to the where we could see directly out into the towards the Delaware River, where there were no trees. You know, with the river was
Sure.
wide enough where you look straight down, you're not going to see any trees obstructing your view. And then it was high enough, and we had us, Rob. It was like seconds. I mean, I'm saying seconds. It was probably it couldn't have been more than 2 seconds, and it was we described it, or I described it as a fluorescent light white. There was no reflection. It was just light, just white light, and it was a circular disc, estimated now from where we a couple miles away, 300 feet in diameter. Well, we're kids. We don't. Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell distance now. Even I have a hard time. And but what I did notice on the side of the craft as it went past, there were concentric. Let's see, 1, 2, 4 concentric circles. They were black lines, and they just they were spaced, I guess, perfectly for their manufacturer, whatever the craft was, and it was gone, and we all looked at it, and we looked at each other and said, "What the heck? What did we just see here? A full moon going down the Delaware River. Who knows? It could have been 100,000. Well, I don't know if it was 100,000 miles an hour, but it could have been 1,000 miles an hour because it was so quick." But there were 6 of us that saw this, and that was my first sighting. Now, what's really interesting about that, I'm jumping forward to the late 70s. I think it was late 70s when we formed. My dad set up and I was a part of it, of the Del Val UFO organization, the nonprofit group. And one of the men who used to come, he worked for a think tank in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, which was all high tech at the time area, very, very big on professional businesses and large corporation home offices and things. And I was telling him about that when I was 12 and with my friends, and he looked at me and he just said they were from Alpha Centauri, and I go, "What?" I said, "Who was?" He said, "That craft you saw." I said, "Dick," I said, "how would you know that?" He says, "Well," he says, "my job every day is I go and sit in a bunker or a room within a building with no windows, no walls, with walls and no clocks, and I just sit there and I think, and it's called I work for a think tank, and I get impressions, and this is what you saw, and where these people were from in this particular spacecraft." Well, I have no way of knowing, and that's the only thing that I got to go along with this guy said. He said it was from Alpha Centauri. I have no way to know whether it really was or not.
How many spacecraft or UFOs have you seen in your entire lifetime?
13 that I can actually say that were spacecraft, and including that one I was just talking about.
Were they different sizes, different shapes?
Yeah, there were. Well, this one was a circular one, the first one, and the smallest that I saw was. It's just really interesting, Rob. When I used to go up with my friends. In fact, one of the guys that I saw this craft at 12 years old. We're still friends after all these years. I've known him since I was 5 years old, and we're still friends. And he comes down and we photographs. I take him on junkets to photograph wildlife. But the area that we used to fly fish in upstate New York, on the Pennsylvania border on the Upper Delaware River. Mm-hmm. Prior to going up there, this one week, we always went up in the spring, and this one time we went up in the fall, and they were getting sightings for that whole week prior going up in the Catskills area of New York State of flying saucers. Mm-hmm. There were 3 days of people just reporting spacecraft up in that area. So I'm getting to my point, which I'll make it quick. When I was up there and then when I was fishing and wherever I was camped, I got up there the day ahead of time and set up camp, and we tented. We're like 5 miles in the woods. I mean, from middle of nowhere, And I was canoeing down. We would go up a river and then canoe down, and I was by myself. And there were people on this island that we always fly fish off of in the springtime. And I decided there were too many people on the right side of the island. It was a little bit of a rapid, so I went to the left side, and there was a woman on the bank, and there was a man on the left bank, and there was a man on the right on the island facing the lady, and up on the hill were three men. It was in the early 80s because I was involved with forensic photography, so I'm looking at these guys up in the woods with a black SUV, and they got blue blazers, white shirts, red ties, and guns. And I'm thinking, what the heck? So anyway, I'm talking to these people as I'm canoeing through it, and here, the man I was talking to, because we were brief conversation on life, it was former President Jimmy Carter, or former President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, I should say. So, and he had seen, he said he saw a UFO, in the 70s, I think it was. And he was in the Navy.
Yeah.
But I just found it ironic here. The the former president of the United States loves fly fishing, and his wife loves it also. And they're heading to the Catskills. So for 3 days during that preceding weekend, there was a UFO craft that people were seeing all over. And then I run into President Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, on this island. And I thought, well, it's so ironic that something like this would happen. So I wrote him a letter, and I didn't talk about flying saucers. I just sent him a letter, and up in Plains, and he sent me a little reply back on how much he enjoyed that area up there. And it was just so strange that here he had seen a flying saucer, and he said that before he ran for the president of the United States. And then, like I'm saying, for those three incidents, or three different nights of sightings in New York, in the Catskills area, New York State, and then here's the president shows up, and I had a brief conversation with him.
Stand by, David. David, I've got to take my news break. Please stand by. X Zone
Okay.
Nation, David Campione is our special guest. SpaciousSky.com is his website, and we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away. David Campione is our special guest this hour. X Zone Nation, www.spaciousSky.com. And if you'd like to get a copy of David's book, UFO Spacecraft Identification Manual, it is available on Amazon.com. David, I had to cut you off because of the news break. We have to take all our breaks are hard, so we can't deviate. Finish that story that you were telling us.
Yeah, well, after still fishing the rest of the weekend, that was on a Saturday, and talking to all the different people up there. Anyway, because one group of people, when I went down to where my tent was, and these people came out and they were dragging my canoe in, and they said, "Boy, you're really who are you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, that's how I found out I was a former president of the United States. These people thought I was important, right?" But anyway, I'm driving home on Sunday. The next day, my friends and I that came up on Saturday. We fished Saturday and part of Sunday, and I'm driving home through the farms and around it's a town called, it's the only town that I know of in that area. It's called Equinox, Pennsylvania. I think they had a bar in it, and that's it. I didn't think it wasn't a town, but that's what they called it. And I'm driving through the farm area, and all of a sudden I look off to the left. I'm passing this. I just passed the cow. There was a milking farm, and I see about 100 feet in the air, I see this gold globe. It couldn't have been It couldn't have been 3 or 4 feet in diameter. Solid. It just looked like a solid gold piece of. It was a sphere, and no reflection coming off it, nothing. And this thing just disappeared and then just was zipping on by like it popped into view and then just kept on going and then popped out of view again. So it was just interesting. But the other sizes that I seen them when I was surf fishing in Ship Bottom, New Jersey, on Long Beach Island. And I always took a coat because you're out fishing and you're out there all day in the wind and the sea, and you're standing on the beach, and you're there for 8 hours, and it gets cold. And I saw this black cloud coming, this incredible storm, and I'm thinking, am I going to make? I was debating whether to leave the beach or not because I said, nah, what the heck, I'll still fish. Well, anyway, there was a young couple near me, about a couple 100 feet away, and they stopped and they were looking at this cloud, this storm coming. And then, Rob, it was just the most amazing thing. You could well, you've seen them where the rain is just torrential. It's like a waterfall, and there's nothing 10 feet away. And that's what this thing did. This cloud came and stopped right at the beach line, the beginning of the beach. And I was down near the water. I was at the water, and so was this other couple. And then for some reason, I'm watching, and I felt, well, and then I saw the storm like heading north up it was coming east, and then it just stopped and then started heading north. And I turned and I looked out over the ocean, and out over the ocean near the horizon, I would say, looking at, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees up above the horizon, there was this, to me, it's the only thing I can say. It was a mother craft of some kind, huge. I mean, it had to have been out at the horizon, so you can almost see 2-3 miles out. And this thing looked like it was at least, I don't know, a mile in length, and it looked like a 55-gallon drum. It was all black. And I asked somebody about that, what it was. And so, yeah, that's the guy he gave me the guy's name, the captain who operates. He said he controls the weather on the Mid-Atlantic states. And I go, really? It was mind-boggling to me. And I saw that same craft 7 years prior to that incident, surf fishing. And outside of Media or Lima, Pennsylvania, actually, in the horizon as the sun in the early evening, like about 5 o'clock in the summertime. Same craft. And I said, this is so weird. And then the time my wife and she was driving, we were heading back to to Las Vegas. We were driving around, and this was in 1988, and she was driving and she was flying along because the speed limits were different at the time, those years. And I look out to the left, and I said, oh my God, there's something going to crash over there. And it was like a black airplane with the tail, but no wings and no windows and nothing. And it was just like sitting there, and I thought, this thing's going to crash, or it did crash, or something was going to happen. And my wife slammed the brakes on, and she said, what are you looking at? And I said, I'm telling you, there was a big something out. And this thing, we timed it, Rob. We went out, we took the power line road out to a little power station and drove out with a rental car. And it was 4.5 miles from the highway back to where I saw this. And where I saw it, it looked like it was a mile long. And then we were hiking around above like there were dunes out there, and we were climbing on them and climbing up. And I said, where the heck did this thing go? It was so huge. And up on the left, when we stopped, and I looked way across, now I'm looking back past the highway, probably miles away on the other side of the highway, and up high, I could see, it looked like a traffic light. Red, green, yellow, and green, and from where I was, it looked like the globes were the size of a basketball. And then I turned, and my wife saw it also, and we turned and we looked the other way, and we could see way off in the distance, miles in the distance, where the cliffs were, these rock cliffs. It looks like somebody had taken a laser and cut a huge rectangle out. Now, I don't know how big it was or what, because of the distance that we were at. And then we decided, well, then if we don't see anything, so we just left. Because we had to go catch an airplane to head back to Florida. So, but that was another big craft. Yeah, that was exciting to see something like that.
Well,
And of course, I didn't have a camera in my hand.
answer me this, David. Why is it that certain people like yourself have the opportunity or the good fortune of seeing these craft when there are so many other people who see nothing?
Maybe it's just our philosophy and our vibrations at times. As you know, when you're younger, your mind isn't as cluttered up with things. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
Could it also have something to do with the person's own belief structure that they believe, so they see?
No, not well. I never believed in them. I mean,
Okay.
I believed in them, but like the first one, I mean,
Yeah.
how would you believe in something when if you never saw one before, and
Good
or
point.
even and plus you're there with 5 other people.
Yeah.
That's and we all saw the exact same thing, and that's a pretty remarkable sighting for something like that to see, and because it was the most beautiful. Uh, I think it was the most beautiful spacecraft that I've ever seen. Even the Paul Villa's photographs. I mean, that's a beautiful craft that he photographed in outside of Albuquerque. But this craft that the man said was from Alpha Centauri, that was just amazing. I would, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to take a ride in it.
Sure.
But
Tell our listeners about Paul Villa.
yeah, Mr. Paul Villa was, I believe, I will say that he immigrated here to the United States, I believe legally, and he was an auto mechanic, and he resided outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he had a little shop there, and he started hearing somebody. He heard a voice. He was working on a car. And somebody said, well, get your camera and come down to and meet us outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. They told him what the voice in his head. And he goes, so I guess he was underneath the car, and he gets out from underneath the car, and he's looking around and he's saying, who's playing a prank on me here? So, and he said, well, so he didn't think anything out, but this continued like for about a week. And then he decided, well, maybe I should do this. And he had a Ricoh 35 millimeter camera. Shooting 35 millimeter color, I guess it was a Kodacolor. Yeah, that was negative film. And he went out to an area where they told him they would be, where the spacecraft would be. And he said, well, you know, Rob, can you imagine receiving information like that? I mean, today would be different, but here you are. Here the guy's he's a God-fearing man. He was a Catholic, and he's hearing these voices. But in his head, anyway, he goes out there, and he's still hearing a voice. And they said, "Okay, we'll get out of your car and
Right.
get your
Yeah.
camera out." And this spacecraft, this flying saucer, a real flying saucer with a dome on it, and it's on my website. You can see all the Paul Villa photographs in color, daytime, and up close. And he just started taking pictures of it, and they told him they were going to do. They did a few maneuvers with it, and then when it came within a quarter of a mile of Paul, and then he said it stopped, and they took a nice picture of that, and then it settled down on the ground or hovered above the ground, and a little side door or something opened, and out came a gangplank, and out walked 9 people, 9 beings, human beings, between 7 and 9 feet tall.
All
Now,
right.
Mr.
What we're going to do is we've got to take our final break, so please stand by, David. As
Okay.
soon as we come back, let's hear more about these people who came out of this spacecraft.
Yeah.
Exonation, our guest this hour is David Campione. His website is spacioussky.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, you can get the current edition of the X Chronicles newspaper with our compliments at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And welcome back, everyone. David Campione is my special guest. His website is spacioussky.com. All right, David, you've got to take us back to where we were before the break when the gangplank came down and these
beings came out.
There you go.
5 men and 4 women, all between 7 and 9 feet tall, and they didn't float down. They actually walked out just like you or I would walk in anywhere. And they walked out, and they told Paul he could take photographs of them, and he did. He said he did. I never saw the night. We never saw anything. He was told by them that he wasn't allowed to release them until they told him to. And of course, he passed before they maybe they never came back. I don't know.
So what we can say to that is that the extraterrestrials certainly had no psychic abilities.
Oh, you mean for long distance?
Well, no. What I was getting at, that was a bad. All right, that was a bad joke because they said that he couldn't release them until he told them to, but they didn't know he was going to die.
Yeah. Well, maybe they thought they were going to do something before he passed on. So
could be. All right.
But I don't know. Him and my father and him corresponded and did everything, copyrighted and everything, the photos, and they corresponded for 8 years. But the interesting to me, which are fascinating, or the few interesting things about Paul meeting these beings, he said that each one of them was emitting a Christ light. Now, to me, that's their body is surrounded in light, like we've seen in Renaissance pictures of
an aura.
Yeah. And this is how Paul described it as the Christ light, that they were all, each one of them were surrounded, and he said they were beautifully proportioned. They weren't, they just like tall beings, like a basketball player, but bigger, and so up to 9 feet. And the other thing is they were, of course, there's no verbal. It's all mental communication. Paul was doing verbal and receiving the information, hearing it in his head. And he went and, oh, God, where was I going with? Anyway, he said that they told him to contact Michael Campione in New Jersey. And Paul's going, what are you told? Who is this man? He said, well, you look him up. He's in New Jersey, and he'll help you with getting these photographs out and the information out that you have, that we allowed you to photograph. And he said, we're from Como Berenices, which is in the M60 in the spiral galaxy of Como Berenices or Berenices. He didn't say. In fact, Rob, somebody I was corresponding with or communicating with, typing on Facebook one time off of your program, off of your site,
right.
And they asked me, well, what planet were they were from? I said, well, I don't know. I don't even know where our planet is in the Milky Way, let alone somebody that's over 400 million light years away. But but it was just so strange that they said to contact my father, because he's the only one you can trust in this down here on getting the information out, and that can be honest with you. And the other thing that they said, which I found was beyond interesting, they were talking, and I never saw the correspondence. They were communicating to Paul about how they knew about the Master Jesus, the Christ, when he did his reign here, and 2,000 years ago. And he was just like, I mean, can you imagine these people they come down in this huge space, 160 foot in diameter spacecraft, and from, well, over 400 million light years away, and they're talking about my father of who to contact, and they're talking about Jesus the Christ.
But you know what? I'm listening to this story about Paul Vila, and it sounds very much like the Billy Meyer story.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but he was always in touch with the people. Paul only had this one encounter with them.
So Paul's encounter was like the earlier contactees. I can see his George Adamski.
Oh well, yeah. George was in the late in the early 50s.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said he went to Venus and on the mothership.
Right.
And, the thing that always got me was reading. I don't know why it always stuck out when came out of the book, and I remembered it. when George Adamski was when he was taken from a scout craft and on up to the mothership, and they were going to Venus. Well, he smoked cigarettes, and he was looking for an ashtray aboard the mothership, and they said, "Why do you guys do this stuff down there with the cigarettes?" It just struck me as odd or funny, that these people were, he's looking for an ashtray and they're taking him to Venus.
That brings up an interesting point. Do you think that these visitors from wherever they are, do they pose a threat to the planet? Do they pose a threat to humans?
I don't believe so. In fact, I actually believe that that there are. I mean, I've heard uptolds of a million spacecraft, and these people are volunteers up there, and they're volunteering their service from their planets, and they're just up there trying to protect us from the. Not everybody's good up there. That's flying around just like here on this planet. You got evil up there, and they still have to deal with it, and they're trying to protect us. And sometimes they slip through just like everything else, and they gotta take them out, and that's what they do. They just laser them and they're gone.
But why this planet? Why do they want to pay so much attention to this planet, and yet they don't want to be known?
It could be because they don't want a nuclear, because of the growth of humanity here. If all of a sudden everybody went crazy and started popping nukes over, we just have India and Pakistan are going nuts over there bombing, and they all got nukes, and then we have China and we have the Russians and God.
Well, listen. If they're that much more highly advanced than we are, and in order for them to get from wherever they are allegedly from in the first place, wouldn't they have the ability to disable any nuclear weapons that were fired by the United States, Canada, Great Britain, whoever fires the nuclear weapon? Couldn't they just disable them and they fall into the sea?
I believe they've already done things like that. I mean, I've read stories now, how true they are, where even, what was it, North Dakota? Where
Robert Salas,
Yeah, all those silos that are up there, and that they were on. They were disabled.
Well, you see, there's another story. You've got Robert Salas, who's spewing this story to anybody who would listen, because it gets him to go to different conventions and different lectures and seminars, and it's made him a very minor celebrity, who's telling the story, and yet the guy who was in the seat right beside him in the silo is saying, "What the hell's he talking about?"
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, that's crazy. Well, I believe they do have the capabilities to do that. Now, whether I didn't know the man's name, but I'm just going on the information. See, you just gave me information that I can question now.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because you don't always find out the truth and what's going on, and it's quite possible that they can do that. Rob, and I think that's part of what they're here, because there was that one planet that's out on the other side of Uranus that I called, or my dad always called it Maldek, that they went and blew themselves up, and they're worried about this planet because we're at that stage now, or have been with the stage, that if we blow this planet, it somehow throws a solar system out, and it's endless what could happen and to the Milky Way, or this part of it. And this is what they're concerned about, and that's why, allegedly, that's why they're here. I've never spoke to them. I've never been up there to look down or to see their plans. I just don't. I'm just going on what I've been told or what I've read over the years, and that's what I see.
All right, David, tell me this. My time with you is coming up very fast, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that we are close to disclosure and the end of the truth embargo?
No, I don't. No, I've been hearing this. I've been hearing it for 50 years.
Yeah,
Rob,
me
so
too. In fact, I had Stephen Bassett on the show the other day, and once again,
is that right?
Stephen is like you, a long time good friend of the X Zone, and he's got it. I've got to give kudos to Stephen because he just, he's right in there saying, "Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen." And I feel like saying, "Stephen, I've been hearing that for 50 years."
It's right. Yeah, I hope it does happen, Rob. That's all I can say. That they're going to come out with the truth. But everybody's to say, well, they're feeding us little bits of information because they don't want to panic the populace. But so what? What else can you panic them with? I mean,
That's
come on,
right. Hey, listen, I hate to do this, my friend, but you
Yeah.
and I have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, David. Always great talking to you. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, David Campione, visit his website, www.spacioussky.com. David, until the next time we meet, take care of yourself, my friend, and always great pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Rob, and God bless you and your whole family and all the listeners in the Christ light.
God bless you too, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exo Nation, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Check out the X Zone directory of Who's Who 2019 edition. It's available online at www.xzdww.net. xzdww.net. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Whatever you do, don't go away.